CC7 and Arknights. Super simple, super easy. Nobody even has to think when they have to do it. Doesn't take any effort whatsoever. Do these all sound like common things when you think of CC7? Let's do a quick breakdown of my thoughts and opinions on CC7, shall we? So first and foremost, I wanted to talk about my experience, especially being somebody who's rather new. I'm about 3.5, 4 months into my account, and this is the first CC that I was actually able to participate in. And I feel like we did actually really good. We got to risk 16 on the main stage, the permanent stage, and we were able to get risk 8 on most of the daily stages and go through most of the daily stages, most importantly. And so I felt like we had a lot of time and a lot of different ways to play with the mechanics that CC has to offer. And even though it's not quite done yet, I did want to talk about my review because we've hit the bulk of it and we went through a lot of the different tags and a lot of the daily missions. So right now we're just going through repeats. So I thought it'd be a great time to talk about my experience from beginning to end. Now, I'm not going to try to lie in this one. We had a lot of times where we went negative sanity moment, especially on stream, where I was just hitting this wall, right? It's just timing. My units weren't doing the way that I wanted them to. I was just having to think and use muscles that I'm not used to using in the old brain here. And it really felt challenging. And sometimes it felt a little overwhelming to be like, okay, I can't, like, it just seems like I can't do it. Of course, we were using only 3 E2s and the rest of my team was E1, not even max. And then we used a support unit. So I'm not going to lie about that. We used an E2 support unit. And most of the time they were level 90. So they were like our heavy hitter, usually like a Fartooth or Thorns or something that would give us a little bit of an edge. But we definitely started to use those towards like the later risk. But we tried really hard to use as much of our own team as we possibly could. But once we get to higher risk, I definitely was like, okay, we're going to use some different, supports and stuff like that. But I wanted to do it in a way where I'm like, hey, I see a support. This person looks very interesting and possibly somebody I'm going to want to roll on in the future. So I typically only use the supports that first off fit the stage would make sense. But secondly, it was something that I wanted to play with and something that I wanted to kind of see a unit that I didn't have in order to kind of see if maybe I want to do that in the future. Now, even though we had a lot of negative sanity moments, I really do feel like it taught me quite a bit as a beginner, or a rather new player, I guess I'll say at this point, because we're about 3.5 months, 4 months in to Arknights. And I feel like there was a lot of things where it's just like, hey, if you were paying attention up until this point, you're probably going to be doing okay. Obviously, if you know the fundamentals and you know timing, the way that your units work and the way that your team works, you're probably going to have a pretty decent time. I'm not going to say easy because it's definitely really hard, especially when you're doing different risks. And especially if you've never done this type of stuff before, because there's a lot of mechanics to learn. There's a lot of different gimmicks whenever you're going through like a daily, a permanent, a daily, a permanent. It's just a lot of stuff to remember, and remember what timings you had and what different strategies you were using for each and every one of them. Now, that was something that I feel like it really gave me a little bit of a honing, right? So it really gave me an idea of like, hey, this is my team. This is how to use my team way much better. And I honestly feel like it really connected me with my main team that I typically use in a lot of these different stages. It made me realize the different ways that I can utilize these characters and the ways that I can actually set up my team for future use in other events. I really feel like it like strongholded and gave me a mental idea of how these units could be used together in different ways than I was typically able to do before. Then of course, it also gave me the idea of what different supports and what other units that I don't have and how to use those ones and kind of work with my team as well. And kind of like, hey, maybe this like Mudrock or whatever, or Fartooth or Thorns would really work really well with my team. Maybe I should work on getting them or use my 6-star selector on them at some point, because I do have one. Now, I am pretty happy with where we got. Risk 16 on the main stage and then risk 8 on most of those other stages with the dailies, I feel like was a pretty good progression, especially for where I'm at with my account. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I did every single thing on my own. Most of the time I did my first runs to get the idea of the mechanics, the enemies, and all the bosses and stuff like that my first time without looking at chat very often. But then we would definitely work on strategies. I did not use guides, but I'm not going to sit here and say that I did every single thing on my own and every single little nitpick and every little strategy. Most of the time we would come up with something. I would kind of think about the ways to use my units, and I would kind of have a brainstorming moment with chat, especially on those risk 16s, those risk 8, some of those different ways on arena 8, and some of those harder stages where it's just like, wow, this is very hard. And I try to do as much as I can by myself, but chat was really having this brainstorm moment. I really don't feel like most of the chat really gave me like, hey, this is exactly what to do. I had a couple of memes where people like, just gen alter, so that was kind of a meme thing, but nobody really told me exactly how to play. It was more just suggestions. And then I chose what strategy would work and which ones would work with my teams, and then having to kind of develop stuff as we go. So I really felt it was a really fun activity, especially for the community here with my community, and just going through like the streaming and having like engagement with chat and stuff like that. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. But honestly, I gotta say CC7 was really fun, and I'm really excited to see where we go once we get a couple more E2s, maybe a couple of different characters on the roster. And I think the next CC7 or next CC8 rather is going to be a lot of fun. And I think we're going to have a lot of progression going through that as well. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it on your end. If you are new or, you know, veterans and stuff like that, hopefully you guys enjoy some of the hard stages and whatnot. But that's just going to be my take on it all. I hope you guys enjoy the video. I will see you in the next one. Have a good rest of your night, guys. Peace.